On a blizzard's midst, a 6-year-old girl was spotted with a full-grown cat in her arms, walking through knee-deep snow. Nobody knows where she had come from. Nobody knows how she managed it. The footprints had vanished when her mother arrived home. But what was inside their peaceful cottage would alter everything. The wind moaned like a far cry over the still outskirts of a seacoast town in Maine. Snow lashed the windows of an old cottage on the brink of the pine woods, its wooden frame creaking with each gust. Within, the fire danced dimly, etching long shadows on the living room walls. 6-year-old Emily sat huddled under the window, legs pulled tight under a wool blanket, her forehead lightly against the chill of the glass. She didn't speak, just as she hadn't spoken for the last 12 months. Since the accident, since the night that her father's truck skidded off the icy highway and never returned. No one quite knew what to say to a child who had lost the power of speech. Therapists visited and departed. Neighbors brought over puzzles and fresh bread. Her mother, Sophie, a nurse who now worked late afternoon shifts at the local hospital, left messages on the refrigerator daily. "I'll be home late, sweetheart. There's soup in the pot. I love you." But stillness fell heavy in the house. Thicker than the snow blowing outside, Emily tolerated solitude. At least she did not display it. She observed snowflakes fall like little lost stars, slowly blinking as the tempest gathered. Now and then the wind caused the cottage to tremble and she'd jump a little, but never scream, never shout. Then just beyond the reach of the yard, a figure appeared. Little, delicate, struggling. Emily hunched up against the glass. Against the eye-blinding white was a kitten, bedraggled, shaking, unsteady on her legs. Her heart stopped, and for the first time since she'd lost Tim, something deep within her moved. Not fear, but urgency. The kitten took one tottering step forward, then fell into the snow. Her golden fur was bedraggled and clumped with ice. She attempted to raise her head, but it fell back again, too weak to move. Emily didn't hesitate. She tossed off the blanket, picked up her thick coat from the coat hook near the door, and stuffed her feet into the snow boots that were still a little too large. No one was around to catch her. No one was there to say, "Wait." She opened the door. Cold hit her like a slap. Wind blew in, whirling snow into the house as she went out. Her breath escaped in quick white puffs. She fought through the heavy snow, each step an uphill battle, but her gaze remained fixed on the small body lying just beyond the fence. Closer now, she dropped to her knees. The kitten flinched but did not flee. Her eyes met hers, round, dark, and filled with something she knew. Fear and the soft beg not to be left behind. Emily stretched out her arms hesitantly. "It's okay," she whispered without sound, lips moving only, breath shaping the shape of the word she hadn't used out loud in so long. The kitten whimpered once, then pushed forward into her arms. She was light, lighter than she should have been. Her body quivered with convulsive shudders as Emily enveloped her in her coat, holding her close to her chest. Her fingers were already numb, her cheeks burned with cold, but she didn't let her go. Within the house, she put her gently by the fire and started drying out her wet fur using an old towel. She glanced up at her once, mouthing a "thank you." She smiled weakly. "I'll call you Rusty." She felt a full heart for the first time in a year. If only for an instant. The fire popped quietly, throwing a golden glow over the living room. Emily sat cross-legged by the hearth, observing the small wisps of steam creeping out of Rusty's fur. She had wrapped her in a worn-out flannel towel, set a bowl of warm water to one side, and whispered silent words of reassurance. But Rusty wouldn't calm down. She kept raising her head, ears perked up at every noise from outside. She looked at the door, then back at her, then at the door once more. Her little body shook, not just from being cold anymore, but from something deeper, a restless urgency that Emily could sense more than observe. She whimpered, got up unsteadily, padded to the door, and lightly scratched it with her paw. She turned around to her then. Those eyes, they weren't asking for comfort anymore. They were begging her to get it, to follow, for her to comprehend. Emily furrowed her brow, her little hands locked on the towel. There was something in her chest fluttering again, just like outside. An unseen tug, not fear, not confusion, something more. But still, she paused. The storm raging outside hadn't abated. The wind screamed at the windows. Her curled fingers hesitated uncertainly, and then she met Rusty's gaze once more. She stood there, small and delicate but unwavering. Her eyes didn't doubt, only a quiet desperation that was somehow more courageous than anything she'd ever witnessed. She was afraid, but resolute. And in that instant, something shifted for Emily. If she could stand that storm, so could she. She crept slowly to her feet, stepped to the door, and pulled it open a few inches. Wind howled in like a warning. Rusty hung at her feet, tail low but eyes unbroken. And she got it. She was attempting to tell her something, without words. She nodded. She returned to the coat rack, slipped her boots back on, and tied a scarf around her neck. She then bent down, nodded silently toward the door, and whispered with her eyes, "Lead the way." The wind shrieked more harshly the minute Emily stepped out into it, pulling at her coat and stinging her cheeks with needles. She drew her scarf more tightly over her face, wincing against the whirling snow. The world was white and mad, and only dark lines of trees interrupted the storm's monotonous haze. Rusty walked with odd confidence. Her little legs plunged into the snow at each step, but she never faltered. She would stop every so often and look back to ensure Emily was still behind her, then press on again. A quiet strength, so much greater than she was. Emily behind her, boots crunching through the snow, her gloved hand grasping the lip of her coat. The deeper they descended, the stiller the world grew. No cars, no voices, no sound at all of town life a distance away, just wind, trees, and the rhythm of her breath, steady, courageous. Unfamiliar forest. Trees loomed above them, their branches laden with snow, creating a frozen tunnel. Rusty would pause every now and then, sniff the air, and alter course slightly, as though pursuing a memory. Emily believed her. She didn't wonder where they were headed or why. She didn't need to. Deep inside, she knew. She wasn't heading into danger. She was heading towards something significant, something unresolved. The cold bit at her legs, and her fingers ached, but she didn't slow down. She was no longer just a quiet girl wrapped in grief. She was someone being called into something bigger than herself. Rusty paused again, ears perked, and Emily, with snow clinging to her boots and breath rising in clouds, whispered in her heart, "I'm still here. Keep going."